Long before humanity learned to name the stars, there was said to be another world turning silently between Mars and Jupiter. Its name was Lucifer. Not because it was evil but because it was radiant, the bearer of a magnificent light. In the old esoteric cosmology surrounding Hiram E. Butler's work, the planets were not merely lifeless spheres drifting through empty space. Together they formed something resembling a vast living body. To understand what happened next, we must first see the heavens as these old esoteric thinkers saw them. The solar system was not merely a collection of unrelated planets circling a star. It was imagined as a single living organism, a grand solar man. The 12 regions of the zodiac formed its great celestial anatomy, the cosmic pattern upon which the human body itself was believed to be reflected. And within that body, the planets functioned like living organs and centers of activity. The sun stood as the fountain of life, pouring its vitality throughout the whole system. Aries was its head, Taurus its neck and the base of its brain, Gemini its hands and arms, Cancer its breasts and respiratory system, Leo its heart, Virgo its solar plexus and digestion, Libra its kidneys and lower back, Scorpio its reproductive power, Sagittarius its thighs, Capricorn its knees, Aquarius its calves and nerves of sensation, Pisces its feet. Through these 12 departments moved the planets, not merely as stones in space, but as living centers of specialized force. Mercury carried physical power, perception and memory. Venus governed nutrition, digestion and conjugal love. Mars carried the protective force of the mother and family. Jupiter expressed beauty, grandeur and creative power through the shoulders and arms. Saturn formed thought into structure. Uranus awakened occult and spiritual perception. Every planet received life from the sun and transmitted its own particular quality into the greater body through an invisible medium that Butler called the solar fluid. Within this celestial anatomy, Earth served as the heart, the center of circulation, love and emotion. And between Mars and Jupiter, Butler believed there existed that other world called Lucifer. Lucifer served as the lungs, drawing in, purifying and distributing the vital breath of the sun. Earth and Lucifer were therefore more than neighboring planets. They were two organs joined in one reciprocal rhythm. Lucifer breathed the solar life. Earth carried it onward. Together they sustained one of the most intimate exchanges within the grand solar man. And so, when Lucifer shattered, every world felt the disturbance, but Earth suffered the deepest wound. Not because Earth stood closest to the explosion. Mars was closer in space. Earth was closer in function. The lungs had been torn from the heavens. And the heart was left beating without the breath that once sustained it. Lucifer as its lungs, breathing the subtle life of the sun throughout the solar system. Earth was its heart, receiving that life and carrying it onward. And for ages the great body breathed. The inhabitants of Lucifer became extraordinarily intelligent and individually conscious. They discovered the power of personal will, the sacred ability to say, I am. This was not their sin. Individuality was their gift. But slowly the gift became distorted. They began to admire their own light more than the sun from which it came. They no longer wished to breathe in rhythm with the greater life. Each consciousness began to imagine itself complete unto itself, separate from the source, separate from the whole, and ultimately separate from one another. I am quietly became. I am alone. Self-awareness became self-importance. Freedom hardened into defiance. Individuality became isolation. The inhabitants did not become dark because they had lost their light. They became lost because they mistook that light for something belonging only to themselves. And eventually their outer world began to reflect their inner condition. What had fractured in consciousness manifested as fracture in matter. Lucifer shattered. Its luminous civilization disappeared, and its body became a field of broken stones suspended between Mars and Jupiter, the remnants we now call the asteroid belt within this esoteric telling. But the death of a world did not end its lesson. When the lungs of the solar body were destroyed, the heart felt the rupture. Earth inherited the unfinished pattern of Lucifer, not necessarily as falling stones, but as a wound carried within consciousness itself, the desire to become an individual. And the temptation to believe individuality means separation. Human beings retain the sacred power to say, I am, yet gradually forgot the silent truth that should follow it. I am. Because we are. We became divided from one another, from nature, from the greater intelligence of the cosmos, and eventually from the deeper regions of our own being. We learned to possess light without remembering its source. And perhaps this is where the Christ principle enters the mystery. Not as the destruction of individuality, not as a command to make ourselves small, powerless, or obedient, but as the restoration of relationship. The Christ principle represents the individual who becomes fully conscious without separating from the whole, the one who can carry divine light without declaring ownership of it. Luciferian consciousness says, "The light within me belongs to me alone." Christ consciousness answers, "The light within me is the same light living within all." One path ends in fragmentation. The other leads individuality back into conscious unity. And perhaps the real fall happens every time the individual forgets that consciousness is not private property. Perhaps this is also why we dream. Each night, when the waking personality loosens its grip, Earth, the heart, remembers. She calls her scattered dreamers inward, beyond the borders of the isolated self, and quietly repeats the lesson of the shattered world. You were never asked to surrender your individuality. You were asked to awaken it without worshipping it. You were meant to become distinct but never disconnected. You were meant to possess a will but not one severed from wisdom. You were meant to carry a light of your own, without ever mistaking yourself for the sun. Perhaps Earth was not left beating merely to repeat Lucifer's fall, but to remember what Lucifer forgot. The light becomes whole only when it remembers that it belongs to all.